Welcome to another week of Campus Questions. I'm Sydney Bourdion, and I'm here at Western University to find out about the new procedure that the Management, Organizational and Studies program, MOS, here at Western has started. They're no longer allowing students to ask questions during exams, so I'm at the UCC to find out students' opinions on that.
Personally, I'm in geography, so if I wasn't allowed to ask questions in exams, that'd be kind of hard because with a lot of the concepts, we kind of need further clarification sometimes. And I know especially in MOS, like the classes are so large, so it kind of like it makes sense in the way that they're portraying it, saying that it's a disturbance to the students around, but at the same time, that's super unfair to those students. So I don't necessarily agree with it.
I mean, I'm personally too socially awkward to ask for help during the middle of an exam. But I mean, like, I'd appreciate still having that option available to me if I really, like, especially just, like, even a clarification on a question, because sometimes, like, profs can, like, misword a question where it's not, like, what they actually meant, and, you know, sometimes they revoke an entire question, like, in the middle of an exam. And I think that's important, and I think students should have the right to be able to ask if they wanted to.
I didn't even know that was actually something that wasn't allowed or prohibited in exams. I'm not a MOS student myself, but I've been a part of, you know, a bunch of other faculties, and we haven't been able to not ask questions, I guess. I understand the sentiment, though. Like, some profs don't want to, you know, give away more when answering students' questions, but I think, you know, I don't see a problem with that at all. You know, it could be up to the discretion of the professor, right?
How about students that don't have English as a first language? Do you think that would be difficult for them if they want to ask further questions about the exam?
Yeah, I think it'd be a challenge for them if they couldn't ask questions, right? Because sometimes clarification of, you know, certain phrases or terms may just be, you know, like meaning-wise, not necessarily like trying to understand more of what the question is trying to ask. So, yeah, I think it'd benefit a lot of you know, international students or students where English isn't their first language.
Well, I would say as a TA myself that I think students should always be able to ask questions during an exam. It's up to the professor or the TA to answer that properly. So even if a student were to ask, for example, a leading question, then a TA or a professor should be able to answer that without giving the answer away. And I think it's important that students have an opportunity to ask questions because that also gives feedback to the people that produced that exam or made that exam. Like if every student is asking about a clarity of a question, for example, that might point to the professor or the TA that needs to be looked at for the next time. So I also think not only is it a bad thing for students because they might not get as much out of the exam process as they could, but I also think that that's an opportunity for professors to learn. And if you're not allowed to ask questions, that's sort of negating that opportunity for the professor to also learn from that process or the TA.
So I've never been able to ask questions during my exams, and I feel a lot more confusion coming out of the exam. And sometimes I can't make judgments on like how it went. And it's harder when you're going back to review your exam to know what questions you had during the exam. So it makes the whole process more complicated.
Personally, I don't think it's too big of a deal because within the science department, usually that rule already exists for most exams. And they do have strategies around that. Like they usually have a section on the exam that you can actually write a question down and the profs will look it over after. And then if the question is deemed unfair, then they can like look at it as a class. So I don't think overall it'll make too big of a difference.